Welcome to the Vault XL. Thank you for joining me. Happy weekend, everyone. This is live number 2. Please check out the earlier live stream pertaining to the 2 U.S. women who claimed they were sexually assaulted at Pirates Cove in the Bahamas. There's new information pertaining to the statement released by the resort, and I will bring that at another time. But for right now, let's go back to a little over a year ago pertaining to the Idaho 4. There's some things that have been on my mind. I listened to the Paramount documentary pertaining to YouTubers and TikTokers, and many people had all types of assertions, theories, lies, rumors, and I didn't feed into any of that nonsense because I made a vow that I would not do that in that case because of things that happened in a case down in Georgia pertaining to a woman who was found in the woods burned, and there were many innuendos, and I learned my lesson from that, not to assume who did what and who's involved. But with this case, it's very bizarre, the deaths of these young people, brutally murdered in their own home, in their beds, in their bedrooms. And we're going to go back in time because I have 2 questions. Did Bryan Kohberger break into that home, 1122 King Road, before the 13th of November? Had he been in that house uninvited before the victims were found? Number 2, have these roommates been truthful? Because when I listened to this documentary, there is an allegation that they were in a group chat talking to other people and basically said that they were in the house when these murders took place and obviously would have had knowledge that their friends were brutally assaulted and then later unalived. Let's go back in time. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $BigAngie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats always welcome during the live stream. Thank you for joining me. Hello, everybody in the chat. Got a few viewing. Thank you so much. Get those thumbs up, please. Heavy.com is the source. Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk are the 2 surviving roommates of the University of Idaho students who were stabbed to death in an off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho. Police have said in news releases that the 2 roommates were not injured. An affidavit in the case released on January 5th, 2023, said that Mortensen saw the killer but did not immediately call police. Number 1, she did not call police. Instead, she went back in her room and locked the door, the affidavit says. In a press release on November 18, 2022, police wrote that they do not believe the surviving roommates were involved in the crime. Now, mind you, that's 2 months beforehand. Police thought the roommates had nothing to do with the deaths of the roommates. Okay? Although the surviving roommates have been widely named on social media. 4 college students in the house were stabbed to death with a knife. Police say the deaths are ruled as homicides. The victims are Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Cornado, and Ethan Chapin, who was Cornado's boyfriend. Police called the attack targeted and initially said they did not believe the community was at risk. Bryan Kohberger, a graduate student in criminology at the University of Washington, which was a neighboring state next to Idaho, about 15 minutes away, is now accused of committing the murders. Police later revealed in a press release that the 911 call was placed with one of the roommates' phones. Detectives confirmed that victims were located on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the residence, they wrote. Detectives believe that on November 12th, the 2 surviving roommates had been out in the Moscow community separately, but returned home by 1 a.m. Okay? The 2 that lived returned by 1 a.m. The 2 did not wake up until later on November 13th, police continued in the release. So what time did they actually wake up? I'm curious. And were they also in the same room together, such as the 2 decedent young ladies? Who went up to whom's room? Whom called whom first? Whom walked and knocked on whom's door first? Stay woke now. The affidavit refers to Mortensen and Funk only by their initials and says Mortensen saw the killer. That is Miss Dillon. At 4:17 a.m., a security camera nearby picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud, the affidavit says, and a dog can also be heard barking numerous times starting at 4:17 a.m., the affidavit says. One of the surviving roommates, Mortensen, told police she opened her door, this is Dylan, for the third time after she heard crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. DM described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows, the affidavit says. If we're to believe this assertion, then he would be coming, the suspect, Mr. Kohberger, from Xana's room because her room was on the same floor as Dylan's. And Dylan's room was what we would call the little bitty hallway that you're coming out from the living room. Step into this little space, kitchen to your right, bedroom to your left, and then the stairs would be straight ahead. The man walked past her as she stood in the frozen shock phase and walked back towards the back sliding glass door, it says. And remember, the door was off the kitchen, that sliding door. And usually perpetrators do exit the way they came in. So we're going to assume he came in through that same glass door. And we're also going to assume it was unlocked because there has never been a report of breaking and entering. I'm ad-libbing as I read this. Thank you. She locked herself in her room. She did not say that she recognized him, according to the affidavit. Authorities believe the homicides occurred between 4 a.m. and 4:25. At the crime scene, authorities found a latent shoe print, it adds. It showed a diamond-shaped pattern similar to a Vans-type shoe sold just outside Mortensen's bedroom. According to the affidavit, they also found a knife sheath that contained DNA they later compared to Kohberger's dad, according to the affidavit. And for those of you who have followed this content, the father's DNA was in a national registry, which led them to Bryan C. Kohberger. Idaho State Police spokesman Aaron Snell told ABC News before Kohberger's arrest that the two surviving roommates were the key to solving the crime because they were home when the murders occurred. Potentially they are witnesses. Potentially they are victims, Snell told ABC News, calling the roommates the key to this whole thing, quote unquote. However, Snell told Daily Mail the two are not suspects, but police will exhaust every possibility. ABC News reported that the roommates were home when 911 was called around noon for an unconscious person on Sunday, November 13th, 2022. And this is where the world became enamored with the story. This part right here, where there's someone on the ground, but it's not the victims in the house. Stay woke. This is where all the confusion comes in, and the he said and the she said. Who called 911? They will never reveal that until possibly later down the road. And you have to determine what all that was about outside with the falling out, transferring of phones, someone dialing 911, and no mention of a deceased person times 4. Let me say that again. No mention of deceased people, plural, times 4. Chief James Fry had revealed in a news conference that the roommates were home at the time they weren't held hostage, according to Fry. To Fox News Digital before Kohberger's arrest, Snell said he could not rule them out as suspects, even though he described them as cooperative. These are people who may have seen the crime, but on the flip side may have committed the crime, quote unquote, Snell told Fox News. We don't know if they are witnesses, victims, or suspects. So until we do a thorough investigation, naming them would be inappropriate. How interesting. I don't believe I've ever heard that before. Okay. And then also below this article, you will see it states that both Funk and Mortensen have privatized Instagram accounts. This is Dylan Mortensen on the beach somewhere in America. One photo of the young lady. Unlike the victims, the Instagram accounts of both Mortensen and Funk are private. University of Idaho Pi Phi OK is all that Mortensen reads. Funk's Instagram page reads U of IX at Idaho Pi Phi, Mortensen's Facebook page was still active shortly after the murders, but is not deleted. It says she is from Boise, Idaho. Funk also has an active Facebook page. Now, this is older content that I'm reading to you. There wasn't much visible on their pages except a few old pictures. Morrison TikTok page is set to private. And then here's the infamous picture that was taken, I do believe, on the 12th of the 4 victims. How bizarre that is. To be laughing, having a great time, and then later brutally murdered in your house. And then you have this infamous picture that has been repeated and repeated and repeated and shown so many times to solidify the friendships between the young people and what would be their last photograph together. Chilling pictures have emerged showing the roommates together looking carefree. Exactly. One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day, Gonsalves wrote with an Instagram photo showing her, Conoto, Mogan, Morrison, and Funk. And it is the same picture that I just showed you. It was posted the day of the murders. Jeffrey Conoto, the father of Xana Conoto, told AZ family that he was baffled by the crime. I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense, he said, adding that nothing stood out about that night and Conoto was always in contact with her family. The door locks with a number code. Every time you go, you have to go around the house because the number code, so they either knew that or went around and maybe found the slider door open, he explained to AZ family. Very interesting now. They were just hanging out at home. Xana was just hanging out at home with her boyfriend, he said. He told the site that she fought her killer, bruises torn by the knife. Wow, that's deep. She's a tough kid. Whatever she wanted to do, she could do. The roommates were described as quiet, although the house hosted small parties. Another picture of Miss Morrison. Selfie. Somebody took the selfie of her. Neighbors told the New York Post that the roommates were quieter than their rowdy collegiate neighbors. 6 people lived in the house, they said. Interesting. Who was the person to say that these 2 women were quieter than the other young ladies? You mean other than the young ladies that were murdered? I find that interesting. So how did these women feel living in a house that was rowdy all the time and entertained guests? Stay woke now. The neighbors told the Post that small parties were hosted in the home, but that the roommates were usually quiet by 10 p.m., the Post reported. So, are you speaking of the 2 women or are you speaking of the other women in the house? I'm getting confused. They were seen sitting around a patio fire, drinking beer, the Post reported. Police Chief James Fry said in November 20th, 2022 press conference that the murders have shaken the community. He called it a complex and terrible crime that would take time to resolve. Mascot Police Captain Roger Lanier said in the news conference that on the evening of November 12th, Gonsalves and Mogan were at a local bar and then a food truck in downtown Moscow. Arriving home at 1:45 a.m., Conoto and Chapin arrived home from a frat party at the same time. At 1 a.m., the 2 surviving roommates returned from other places in the community and did not wake up for some time. The 911 call was made just before noon. It was placed by the phone of one of the surviving roommates, police said. They didn't say which roommate made the call. Snell told Daily Mail that Morrison and Funk were helping the investigation. What I find funny about this article, odd. Why do you only have a picture of Dylan? You're going to talk about surviving roommates. Why not show photographs of both women? Is it because Dylan was the one that allegedly saw the suspect, who is believed to be Mr. Bryan C. Kohberger? It's the only reason why you have her picture. You have 2 pictures of her in this article, and then the infamous picture of the kids that was taken that day. This light's starting to get to me, sorry. Heavy.com is the source, everybody. Too premature to say that the roommates had anything to do with the crime at that time. A father says you needed a code to get into the front entry door. No keys, no cards, push code. The killer the killer either knew the code and went in through the front door, or he went around to the side where that door must have been unlocked. So, as I had said before in my previous commentary pertaining to this case, the killer naturally went in the way he left the way he came. Because if there's no evidence that a door was breached, a window was breached, then he went in a way that was already open. So we're going to use deduction. It was a glass door. So then you have to ask yourself the obvious question. How did you know about the glass door? Any ideas? How would Mr. Kohberger know about the glass door? Because if I'm just driving through the neighborhood and I'm not really engrossed in that house, I don't think I would know about that door. Now, would I? No, because I wouldn't care. So that is why the title of this live stream is, Has He Been in That House Before? Mr. Gonsalves has said recently that he believes that he had. Now, what evidence does Mr. Gonsalves have to say that? And during the case, he said all types of things about the wounds of the daughter. Things didn't add up. Why did he go upstairs? So that got your mind to wondering, what is he trying to tell us? Does he know something that we don't know? But yet then he says they're not telling him anything. So it's kind of like, well, then why are you talking? Because you're saying things that's making us talk more. And you'll hear that in that new documentary that's now in the YouTube queue by Paramount. He was vocal. He was adamant. He wanted justice, and we get it. She's your child, as you should. But also in the documentary, they said they believe police wanted him to stay quiet, and I will agree with that. He was too vocal for their taste. We need somebody to care but not contradict us that we don't know what we're doing and we're not doing enough. And we think that they did their job because they do have a suspect and his DNA matches the touch DNA on the sheath that holds the knife. Now, the knife is missing. Where is the knife? Don't know. Why do you have two people alive and not, why aren't they deceased alongside the other four? Victims, some may say, some say they're not victims. You're entitled to your opinion. But it's all funky. Because when I read this commentary, this is why it's always good to go back in time when you are trying to get to the gist of something. It's always good to go back and reread what's been said. And I always remember that it's just a version. Somebody's version doesn't mean it's all the truth. This is why I don't argue about stuff said, even in the articles. He said, she said, I don't do that. Some people want a commentator to do that. I'm not that type of cookie. Because I know that people don't tell the whole truth. Whether they're scared, they're involved, or they just don't give a fuck. But there's always a version. And there's always a little bit of truth sprinkled in to the version. So we have a man being seen on CCTV footage riding around in this infamous white car. Before entering the house, where did he park the car? I think he was in town for a while, at least an hour. Okay? You go back to data, GPS. He was in Moscow, scouring like a vulture in the night, waiting for these young people to make it to that house, which will lead you to wonder, as Mr. Gonsalves said, had he been in that house before? Because what are you riding around for? Waiting for what exactly? You know what you come to do. Or was he just trying to build up courage to go in this place and unalive these children? Couldn't have cared about being seen. You're riding around. Somebody has a camera, doorbell camera, cameras on posts, lamp posts, apartment buildings, so on and so forth. You've been to this location at least 10 times. But you don't know the victims. You're not friends with them. You're not friends with the two surviving roommates. So why are you here at 1122 King Road? because possibly he had been there before. Inside. Because putting somebody somewhere about 10 times is extreme, you must admit. 10 times you've been to somebody's house and you've never knocked on the door, you've never gone in. Why is that? Because you were up to no good. Nefarious business. I got to see, I got to get close. And the best way I can describe Bryan Kohberger and his sick fascination with the girl or girls, however you want to word it, it's like looking through a window at the department store. Stay woke now. You keep walking by the window, looking at the mannequins with the pretty clothes, dressed nice. Takes me back to childhood. No, it sounds kind of macabre where I'm going with this, but when I was a little girl growing up in the city, the mannequins would move Christmas time. Fake snow sleds. Everyone's looking cheerful, but they're mannequins, mind you. And as you look through the glass, you kind of want to be in there. Are you following me? That's why I always use the terminology looking glass. Because that's what you're doing. You're looking through the glass. And at some point, you're going to get tired of looking through the glass. Come on with it, Queen. I want to be in there. I want to feel, I want to touch. That is what happened November 13th. He got tired of looking through the glass, you see. I want to touch, I want to feel. Whether I'm happy, sad, mad, I got to get in the glass. You see, all of that riding around 10 times from Washington State to Moscow was a build-up. What we say in the street, you need liquid courage. And that's what he was doing. Eyeing the prey, watching the prey. And then finally, he had enough of circling. I gotta go in. And naturally, he was bitter, furious, unhuman on this fateful morning. I'm pissed off. I'm angry. Nobody wants to talk to me. Nobody likes me. I'll show her. Them. Because today, no one's talked to him to get an idea of who the target was. Did you kill the other people for happenstance? They were in the way. Because he wouldn't have known the two girls were going to be in the bed together, two friends who've been a long-time friends since 6th grade. How would he know that? He wouldn't. Unless he's been in there and they've slept in the bed before. Say, whoa. I do believe he's been in there. Because as I said, how many times you're going to keep looking through the glass? Now, naturally, you could pull the house up on Google at, a while ago, and Google would show you the house. So even if Mr. Kohberger had never been inside, never broke in, he could have gone to Google to see what it looked like, get an idea of how to enter, how to exit. And I do, believe he's been around it. He went to the apartment complex to the right of the property and sat back there and looked. I won't doubt he got out of the car. He walked down the little steep hill and eyed it from either the parking lot or he walked around. So now we got to wait for results to show us the times. of walking around, sitting around. But he got tired, okay? He got tired. Now, was it the jump off because one of the girls didn't respond? We hear that he did reach out to one of the girls. They have not released which one it was. So this was the catalyst of going to 1122 King Road that fateful morning. Oh, this such and such ain't messaging me, ain't responding to me. I'll show her. And sadly, other people were in the house and they had to get the brunt of it. But the weird part, listen carefully now. You've left two. And how ironic you walk by Miss Dillon. Make it make sense. So you hear in this commentary by Heavy.com that an audio picks up whimpering and a dog barking, barking, barking. Dillon has opened the door 3 times. How macabre is that? To be opening the door 3 times and the killer is obviously in the house every time you have opened the door. And they're putting this macabre crime after 4 to 4:25. So we've got a window of 4:17, 4:25. That's only 8 minutes. So shall we give him a little more time? 4 to 4:25, whichsoever. So then you got to ask Dillon, what's the interval between you opening and closing the door 3 times? Then we get information. She yelled 1 time. Hey, cut it out. Shut up. Be quiet. I'm trying to go to sleep. Think about what's been said and ask yourself, does it make sense? But see, the one thing I always tell myself before I start judging who knew what, saw what, I have to always remember, who am I dealing with? Checkmate. Who am I dealing with? I don't know, because I don't know him. Because what makes one person hop out of bed won't make Bubba Susie jump out of bed. Okay? Neighbors arguing, fussing, barking dogs, cussing. Somebody will sleep right through it. Somebody will get up and look out the window. Somebody will go open the door, and then somebody will just cuss under their breath and won't get up and say a damn thing, won't beat on the wall. You see where I'm going. So you got to know these 2 females to say what they knew, what they heard. Because it's going to be a crying shame times 4. If they were in that house and heard hollering, screaming, bumping, thuds, and didn't do a damn thing. Didn't wait for a while to say, I got to get up and see what's going on, because it sounds like something going down up in one of these rooms. Three times. Open, close. Open, close. Open, uh-oh, whole human, tall man, bushy eyebrows. Who the hell is this? He says nothing. You say nothing. Imagine that. Is it true that you all were up when all this went on? Had to be. You had to be. So then we got to ask what the hell Bethany was doing. Did you, Dillon, call her after Mr. Kohberger walked past you? Did you call her to say something's awry up here? Number 1. Did you exit out that room? Number 2. What time did you go to sleep? Number 3. Did you go down to Bethany's room? Number 4. And why didn't you call 911 to see this man walking by? He doesn't look like a friend of yours, of theirs. You never met him, never seen him before. It didn't dawn on you it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Why is this stranger walking through this hallway, exiting out through the kitchen? You didn't find that strange? Because what you have to tell yourself is the obvious. Come on with it, Queen, because we're not going to sugarcoat this shit no more. You are in your room without a man. 2 girls are upstairs. You don't know if they got a man up there. Downstairs is your other homegirl. Wouldn't you have called her to say, hey, did you just have a guest? But then let's role play, because that's what we're doing right now. He would have went out the front door if he went to see Bethany. Checkmate. Why would he walk all the way up the stairs to go through the kitchen to go all the way back around in front of the damn parking lot when he's at the parking lot downstairs? So it wasn't Bethany's company. One removed. Xana's removed because Xana has a boyfriend, Ethan. Two removed. He ain't my company. Three removed. Oh, shit. Come on with it, Queen. That leaves the two girls upstairs. He's coming from around the corner, or he's coming from downstairs. Take your pick. Xana has a man, so that leaves Bethany. Little do you know, Xana and Ethan are fighting or unalive. Make it make sense. Now you got to say that the victims died quietly. Nobody screamed. Nobody hollered. No lamps got broke. Mr. Gonsalves says that Kaylee was sitting upright in the bed, which means she was cornered because there was nowhere else for her to get out. Maddie's next to her. She's on the outside. They're trapped. Room small. Door hits the bed. Nowhere for either female to go. Am I supposed to believe this was quiet up there? Dog barking. He knows something's wrong. Doesn't know this figure. This figure is unaliving two people that he's close to. Hell yeah, he's barking. And nobody is curious to get up. Fuck it. I'm asleep. I'm tired. And that's understandable. Or is it? You're entitled to your opinion. But what doesn't add up? It's not inquiring about the man that just walked by you. Barking dogs. Hearing someone say, I'm going to help you. So, Dylan, did you call Xana's phone to say what's going on around there? Are you okay? If you did, naturally, she did not reply. Did you also then call the girls upstairs and say, hey, what's going on? Hey, I think there's something going on with Xana. Naturally, they didn't reply because they were not alive. So that leaves good old Bethany. Did you call Bethany to say, I think something's going on? I heard struggling noise upstairs, and now I hear Xana crying. She's not responding. Kaylee's not responding. Maddie's not responding. See, at some point, you should have intuition. Some people don't get it. I mean, that's life. There's some people that just don't get a gut instinct. Kind of like the building's on fire and they want to go in and play. I'll be all right. Take a shower, I'll walk in the fire, I'm good. Just saying. Because at some point in life, you should have a gut instinct about people, about circumstances. And on that fateful morning, Dylan, radar should have been very high. You have been friends with these girls long enough to know something was wrong with this tall guy dressed in dark clothing, walking by you with a face mask. He's not their friend, your friend. It's 4 in the damn morning, and you don't say to yourself, I think I should call the police. I've heard crying. I've heard thumps. The dog won't stop barking. I've had to yell out the door 3 times. What's going on here? Where were your gut instincts, honey? Or you do know what happened. You put two and two together. You went and you looked. And that's where I get real ugly. Because I told myself from listening to the information last night, dear God, please tell me these heifers ain't laid up in no house with dead folks bleeding out, because it's going to smell. It's going to smell like metal. It's going to smell like iron. 4 people unalive and butchered to death. It ain't going to smell good, okay? The outside fiasco with the phone is confusing to most of us. 911, what's your emergency, please? Yes, I'm calling to tell you that my friend just passed out. I don't know what's wrong with her. Okay, we'll send an ambulance. Huh? Well, how'd they get there? Explain it to us. You came outside your house. Allegedly, this is the word on the street. And somebody used one of your girls' phones to call 911 because one of you fell out. Why, Dylan, Bethany? This makes no fucking sense. If I found my friend deceased in a horrific way, times 2, times 4, that'd be the first time you see a big girl roll up out that house like a ball of damn fire. Did you hear what I said? We ain't got time to fall out in the fucking driveway parking lot. Because big girl is already down at the stop sign. Passed out. Checkmate. I'm out of there. If I didn't know any better, you're hanging around like it's a party. If you just saw death, how is it you are only at the fucking parking lot? Please help me understand. Because what is macabre about this story is there's a rumor that you all knew that those kids were dead. You heard the shenanigans going on up in there. The horrific dismantling of human life. And you didn't think to call 911. Allegedly, you didn't get up and go see. So then we got to ask, what time did you get up that morning? Why are people outside? Allegedly, it was an array of people outside. So that means people are calling people. To say what? Help me understand. We're calling to say what exactly? Hey, you better get over here. I think something happened to your brother, your sister, your cousin. What? It don't add up. Because instinct should have told you something's not right. I'm going to help you. Who did you think that was? Did it sound like Ethan? Because let me say this. If it didn't sound like Ethan, then it leaves that guy that just walked by you. Lord have mercy. Let me say it again. If it didn't sound like Ethan, then that bushy eyebrow fella with the mask, that's who was talking to the victim. So now we have to ask that. Who was unalive first in the room? Ethan or Xana? Were those his last words to her? I'm going to help you. But he couldn't. Or was it Mr. Kohberger being a smartass and toying with the dying? I don't know. I just can't understand not having no good instinct. That's all I'm saying. I don't understand this phone call shuffle outside. Because one is going to assume you had seen the dead people or dead person. And you had to seen two because two were in the bed together. And then I'm also supposed to say to myself, what? He didn't leave a trail going up and down the stairs around the corner to Xana's room? He left a latent shoe print. So that means he didn't have no booties on his shoes. So he didn't touch nothing, didn't rub up against nothing. Not a wall, not a banister, nothing. Coming down the stairs bloody, go past your room, go around to the left, kill those two kids, come back out, and then he sees you, you see him, nothing. Out the door he goes, you lock your door without even saying to yourself, who the hell is that? And where the fuck is he coming from? You see, the odds is where we have the problem. Because he couldn't be coming from but 2 rooms, 3 rooms, 2 on the bottom, Xana's room. You are now in that room right there in the cubbyhole space near the kitchen. So the room downstairs that would have been your room is vacant. And then there's Bethany's room. So if he didn't leave Bethany, then that leaves Xana and Ethan. And why would he be coming from around there? And once again, if he was visiting Bethany, he would exit out the front door, which is on the bottom level. He had no need to come back upstairs. So this is why I'm wanting to understand how your mind didn't assess something was off with the probabilities. One down could exit out the front door. Xana has a guy. He ain't coming from there. You're the only one left on the floor that could have been entertaining a guy. You don't know him. So what the fuck do you think he was doing? So as someone said in this commentary in this documentary, I would play it, but I don't want any copyright strikes because I'm tired of getting warnings about playing content because they are funny about you playing anything. And it's to the point where you have to even be careful playing news broadcasts. Feel free to go look it up in the YouTube queue to listen to the documentary. Listen to the TikTokers and the different conversations. We're now going to believe that these were 4 silent deaths. You're yelling out, opening and closing a door 3 times, and see the perpetrator the 3rd time, allegedly. And no gut instinct told you something happened on that 2nd floor around the corner from me. And I got a feeling something happened upstairs. And it's going to be jacked up if somewhere down the road in life, we do find out that you two got up, looked in the house, saw the dead kids, and stupidly went back into a room and locked the fucking door. For what damn reason? Because what type of person could lay in a house with dead people shrouded up into pieces? Because the one thing we've learned, you don't know no more than what's told to you. And this is Dylan's version. Haven't you found it interesting? You've heard nothing from Bethany. No conversation ever repeated in the affidavit of what she saw and what she heard. So one could say, well, she was sleeping through the whole thing. I don't know that. I don't know if Dylan called her. Hey, get up. Kept calling the phone, texting. Something's going on up here. I don't know what's going on, but there's something going on around that room and there's something going on upstairs. I'm scared to come out the room. But a group chat says, you made it out that room. Now, where would somebody get that information from, Dylan? Bethany. that you did make it out the room and you went downstairs and hung with her till you decided to come out the room and spin this storyline. What's the truth? Because I'd hate to find out that you two knew all along those kids were dead in there and you didn't do a damn thing. Even if they couldn't have been saved, you still should have called the police. And this would lead me to believe, damn, are you crazy? You don't care nothing about your friends. You don't care nothing about yourself. Because I'd be worried about myself. I don't want to be in a house with a killer. I don't know if they're going to come back. Self-preservation. Where was your self-preservation? Where was the instinct? Something is not right. Because if you called their phones and they didn't answer, you had to have known then something was wrong. They was just making noise. You yelled out, remember? Cut it out. Keep it, cut the noise down. So they just fell asleep that quick. Lord have mercy. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. Well, they feel like they have all they need for the house. State attorneys. But you can best believe there'll be one jury member who will want to be in the house, see the house. And now the house is gone. I was thinking about that yesterday while I was listening to this documentary. The house is no longer just dirt. Haunting it was it not? Looking at that house. I never liked the house. Once I looked at the house, it was not attractive to me. And it wouldn't have been attractive to me even if the children were alive today. It just was not a pretty house to me. Now, factoring 4 people have been unalived in there, hell no, it's not attractive. Now it's just dirt. Did Bryan Kohberger break into this house before November 13th? Let's role play, shall we? He is obsessed with one of the girls, whomever. Don't know which one. Doesn't really matter. I got to get in. I got to see. I got to taste. I got to smell. The fact that one of the fathers says the killer would have had to have gone around to the glass door unless they had the code to the front door. They never lead to believe these kids left the damn glass door unlocked, which was dangerous, which is why the queen never pointed the finger at any suspect, because you had 4 victims. 4 victims you didn't know from a can of paint. And I was not going to be a fool to say who I thought unalived the kids. How would I know? 4 people, 4 friendships, 4 problems. Party all the time, people running in and out. It was a recipe for disaster. Let me say it again. It was a recipe for disaster. You see, when you are young, you are considered dumb. Just dumb. 4.0 grade average, dual majors, master degrees, PhDs, still dumb, dumb, dumb. Because you don't think. You're letting every Tom, Dick, and Harry come in your house to drink, eat, and you don't know shit about them. You know only what they have exhibited. And we have learned from young people, old, alike, you don't know people. You could have had Satan in that house at any given time when you were entertaining the masses. That's why I never pointed a finger at a suspect. Because one, they were college students. They lived in an area filled with young people. So why would I point the finger? And just like I was saying to myself last night, Jack could have killed himself from all the dirty and ugly things said about him. You don't know what that could have done to him and anybody else. And the neighbor, he kept talking, running to news outlets, making himself look suspicious to some. You have to think. Don't go into the abyss if you ain't got to. Now, Jack got drugged into the abyss because everybody was trying to dissect the food truck. Look how wrong you were. You were looking at Facebook posts and pictures and trips to Africa and this and this. You were far removed from the truth. Because you thought you knew every damn thing and you didn't. Because as I said, I made a vow. I'm not pointing the fingers at anybody because it's too many people dead to say who did it. I don't know who these kids talked to, who they fell out with, who they were in a relationship with, who they had a fling with. If it was a neighbor that got mad at them because they're having parties all the time and playing music. You've seen the police have been there. The possibilities were endless. But who knew 15 minutes away at a neighboring college, there sat your demon. And they also gave us information that perhaps he stalked the girls 1 year ahead of time. And that won't shock me either. Because you don't know people. Because everything is readily accessible for stalking. Open accounts. You've got University of Idaho on there. I think you can do the rest if a person wants to find you. You're taking pictures of the damn house. You're posting the places where you work. So it didn't matter if he came from Pennsylvania or Mars. He could have found you. And he did. Because he wasn't from Moscow. He wasn't from Idaho. He wasn't even from Washington. He was just going to school in Washington. Stay woke. They were ripe for the taking. One, having parties and every time Dick and Harry running in and out of your fucking house. Never locking the damn door. Posting to social media without a care. You cannot give the enemy what he wants because he's always looking for that little, small, minute opportunity to infiltrate. And that is what Bryan C. Kohberger did. They gave him what he wanted. You see, this is why many people get hurt, because they don't think. I'm living my best life. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm grown. Don't tell me what to do. You got to listen sometimes. Now, don't take these as harsh words. It's a lesson to be learned, you see. You have to be aware of your faculties, your surroundings, what you post, what you tell people, the company you keep. Because imagine he's been in his house already, found the target's room, took something out of there, lipstick, makeup, sheet of paper, underwear, I don't know. Oh yeah, I'm coming back now. They don't even lock their damn door. Just imagine that. Going into a stranger's house because you have some sick obsession with one of them. And you're lurking about and nobody knows you're in there. Such as that fateful morning. Oh, that was also mentioned in this article that she thought she heard Kaylee say, somebody's here. Oh, but somebody was. Now think about that comment. Somebody's here. And he was there. Nobody searches their house when they come home from work and school. Do you? Do you look around your house when you come home? I'm talking to you. Whoever's listening to this live stream. See, I always want you to think. Because thinking might save your life. Do you search every room when you come home? Think about people who live in a house the size of what they were living in. And imagine you're a single person in there. Someone could be just lying in wait under a bed, in a closet, in a shower, while you're just dilly-dallying around, kicking off your shoes, got to look at your phone, going to the refrigerator, putting up parcels, pulling off your clothes, and you have no idea that the perpetrator is sitting in there watching and listening to every damn thing you're doing. Just imagine he's been in the house, made entry, he watched, he lied in wait, he took the chance, walked in, walked around, learned the layout, found his praise room, exit out, kept coming back. Then November 13th. There's a reason for the numerous visits. I don't even know how he focused on his schoolwork. Being a teacher's assistant, trying to apply for the police department. How did he find the time if you've been over there to King Road at least 10 times? Looking and lurking. He found her, them. And that's what most of you should be petrified of. Is that he did not know them. They were not his friend. He was not their friend. He did not hang with any of their friends, associates, family members, neighbors that we have seen or heard. And he made entry into a house and unalived 4 people and left 2 alive. You don't find that jacked up? And then he's new to the area. So that means he had no ties to Washington or Idaho, except for being newly enrolled in the school program. Stay woke now. And yet, you just got to the school. Okay? You just got to this school. And not even a few months later, you have killed 4 people. And reached out to one on the internet. Are you all listening? Because I won't doubt he found her before he even applied to college. And that's even scarier. That the girl was stalked from Pennsylvania. Stay woke. Now, the only problem I have in this investigation is him going to Pennsylvania with the father. I felt like he could have been arrested sooner. Because you could have easily gotten DNA from him while at Washington. He was there a month before he went on Christmas break. Stay woke. So that's part of the story I'm teed off about. No way should he have made it across that fucking country. You want me to believe you couldn't get no DNA on this motherfucker while he was over here in the playground near Idaho? Come on now. You want me to believe he was still walking around with gloves on? Hell no. He couldn't go to school with gloves on. He couldn't go teach school and grade papers with gloves. Don't you think people would be looking like, hey, what's going on? The professor would say, hey, what's going on here? Why you got these damn gloves on? Hey, too obvious. Nothing found at the school. Nothing found in his office. Minuscule stuff in his apartment. Maybe that's how he wanted to live. I don't know, because they never described what was in the apartment. Bed, furniture, desk, what? Nothing in the storage unit at the apartment. But something was on those devices that led to 1122 King Road and the inhabitants. Now the rain is coming down harder outside. Imagine he stalked one of the girls in Pennsylvania, came across her IG account, and became enamored, obsessed. Now I got to go apply to school. Moscow. Couldn't get in. Let me go to Washington State. Now we ask that question. Did he apply to the University of Idaho and didn't get in? Or he looked for a school that had the program he wanted, which was Washington State. And another key detail that a lot of people don't talk about often is the fact that one of the victim's sister was also at Washington State. What are the odds of that? Now you got to ask yourself that. Did he also stalk her? Xana's sister. Now imagine hearing that. He just killed my sister and her friends, and I'm going to the same school with him. Happenstance or deliberate? You be the judge. Watch that. Did Bryan Kohberger stalk the victim from the state of Pennsylvania? Did he deliberately apply to school in the Pacific Northwest to get closer to his object of desire? Who was the target? How many times did he reach out to her or them? What did he say in the text messages? And at what point did he become disgusted to exact this plan of murder? How many times has he been in the house before November 13th? Did he actually go inside of this place while the children were there or not there? Or he just went this one time and made entry? The roommates. What do they know about that fateful morning? Were they up and lucid while Mr. Kohberger was unaliving those students? Did they hear suspicious commentary coming from the rooms of the victims and lied in their beds purposefully without a care in the world for their friends and themselves? And will we hear, when trial comes about, the truth of why he killed these kids? Who was the target? Were there any other targets? Was he stalking any other females? What all was found on his devices? And what is the hell wrong with these two females? Did they know Bryan Kohberger? Heard of him? Crossed his paths? Vice versa? And why in God's name did you call all these children over while your friends were lying deceased inside of the house? Because that is so troublesome to me. That you're calling people and they're calling people, which means you had to have told somebody outside or on the phone inside that people were dead inside. Make it make sense. Because that's the theory we got. That the two girls ran out from seeing the macabre inside, and then somebody saw them hysterical, walked up, inquired what was going on, and then one fell out, and then that person or people took the phone and dialed 911, and only spoke of the person on the ground, which was one of the girls, but not what had unfolded inside of the house. What is the truth? Did those girls hear those children scream, holler for their life inside? I find it hard that you could not have heard something. You have to tell me Bryan Kohberger covered up everyone's mouth while brutally stabbing them to death. That's what you're telling me. And Ethan was a big guy. They definitely would have made noise, because you're talking about two tall people wrestling with one another. Unless Ethan was asleep or lying down, didn't see him when he walked in. See, we don't even know how it went. But let's say he was up. Then it would have been a battle of the fittest, survival of the fittest between two men. And how did that happen in Xana's room? Same scenario like upstairs, small quarters. Each person's trapped in there with Mr. Kohberger. Nobody could think to pick up anything to hit him over the head with, because we don't really know how each was approached. Was Xana out of the room, going in the room, in the bathroom, coming out of the bathroom, coming from the kitchen, going to the kitchen? Now imagine had this transpired in the kitchen. Xana's in there fiddling around, or Ethan, and then Kohberger's coming down the stairs and sees them. You want me to believe that girl couldn't have heard nothing going on in the kitchen? And they took off running to the room for safety? And he corners them there? See, I don't even know how it went. I thought I heard that one was lying down closest to the door. Won't doubt that room was just as small as the girl's room upstairs. But when you listen to the information and you try to make sense of the information, it's kind of hard to believe that 4 people would have been murdered silently. It would be very hard to assume the victims made no noise. That's where I have the problem. So if this girl is opening and closing doors, she's hearing something to alert her to keep opening and closing the doors. And then on the third time, Kohberger walks by. He doesn't put his hands on her. He doesn't hurt her. He doesn't unalive her. But you can't make me believe he didn't know about the other girl, and that they both lived in the house with the two who he unalived upstairs. He knew this. He's been there too many times not to know who lived in the house. So in going to the house, you're seeing cars. He saw the cars that morning. They woke and did not care. That's why this crime is more than just the brutality of what he did to the victims. It's the knowing that is scary. He knew they were in there. He knew could be others, but he did not care. And that shows intent. I don't care who's in here. I'm not worried about who's in here. They should be worried about me. I can't imagine what those kids went through. I can't imagine the horror of finding friends and being EMTs, realizing there's nothing we can do to save these people. Now somebody has to notify the family members, community, wondering who the perpetrator is. Am I safe living next door, down the street? Xana's sister actually at the same campus with this fool. He walked free for a month. A month and a half, matter of fact. And then his car was made 2 weeks later. They had pinpointed him as a student at Washington State. And yet, no calling him in, no DNA comparison, for whatever reason. And this guy is walking around amongst people and doesn't get arrested until a month or so later in an entirely different state. And was up to no good when he was arrested, with baggies and gloves on, taking trash and putting in other neighbors' trash. He was watched by the FBI. That's scary to me, because this should not have went to Pennsylvania. That's my opinion. You made him out 2 weeks after the murders. An officer was doing research at the campus on the bolo, whatever, of the car. And you made him out as a resident at the apartment complex. So what I want to know is, why didn't you all follow him around to try to get his DNA? Number two, why didn't you call him in to ask him questions about his car being seen near the crime scene? See, I've never heard that. Hi, we'd like to talk to you, sir. Can you come downtown? We need to have some words with you. About what? Oh, just some business over in Idaho. Won't take but a minute. And then show him the footage. Is this your car? Were you over here at 1122 King Road? Do you know anybody over there? That means he would have to be fast on his feet thinking. But see, it never happened, to my understanding. Because I haven't heard that they interrogated him before he got arrested in Pennsylvania. So I'm trying to understand how you can make the car out. Then you tell us that you all weren't following him to Pennsylvania, which would be the stupidest thing I ever heard. Law enforcement following a potential suspect across state to state to state to state. Who the hell would waste that type of resources? And then the most baffling part of that, he's pulled over 2 times. Trailing in behind a vehicle, which is against the law for those who didn't know that. Can't drive too close. Probably was sleepy. Oh, we're just going to get Chinese. He was scared. Marks on the wrist, allegedly. Some say they thought they could see in photographs that he had his wrist injured. And that is expected as well. When you are stabbing a person numerous times, the suspect will receive injuries himself or herself, because you're going in and out of the body, and liquid is slippery. So you can stab yourself. Should there have been an earlier arrest than Pennsylvania? I say yes. Because Bryan had to eat, he had to sleep, he had to slumber. And I refuse to believe he didn't eat anything for a month and a half. You could have watched him and picked up his trash, took it to a processing center, the police department, lab, whichsoever, got your DNA profile, looked in your databases locally and nationally. When all those were exhausted, then you do just what you did before, later on, is go into the history and genealogy database to see if anybody related to Kohberger and himself was in there. Because if you got the results later linking the father to Kohberger, then this could have been done when his ass was in Washington. Help me understand. Because this was top priority. He slaughtered 4 kids. He had no business walking around as long as he did. But he was cocky, arrogant, and didn't think he'd be caught. Now, there are many myths and storylines pertaining to his innocence. It's the government. It's this. Get the hell on with all that nonsense. The government ain't put him up to this. The Illuminati didn't put him up to it. Kohberger did that. Because his behavior afterwards shows he had something to hide. If you haven't been walking around with plastic gloves on, why would you all of a sudden start wearing plastic gloves up in the middle of the night, dumping your trash from your house, parents' house, into neighbors' homes? Who does that? He didn't think about wandering and trespassing on the people's properties and somebody coming out with a gun or anything. Hey, what are you doing here? What are you doing? What was he going to say? Oh, our garbage bins were full. Huh? Bullshit. Now, a monster was made. Bullying, overweight, former drug use, insecurities, not happy with himself. He was made, I think, into a monster. Maybe could have been a decent person. He chose not to. But then some will say psychopaths are born. So it's entitled to your opinion. But you can be a psychopath and not a killer. So there. Be a sociopath, not a killer. Be a narcissist, not a killer. But usually sociopaths, narcissists, psychopaths and sociopaths are narcissists. So there you have it. Did he exhibit this behavior in Pennsylvania? We get the short end of the stick of him approaching a woman in a restaurant bar, being too close. She felt weirded out. He's asking about where she lived. See, he was getting into form then. Don't know how long ago, what it was. It's been a while since I did research on all this nonsense. But see, he was getting into the role then. Where do you live? Now, that's a question we get a lot here in the South. Men like to ask women that here. Where do you live? I don't advise telling anyone where you stay. Because you don't know anyone. Okay? So I just wouldn't readily say where I live. And that's one thing I've learned about the South. People readily give out information about themselves. They go in public places. People ask them things, and they readily tell where they work, their position, how many kids they have. Because sometimes, it's slow meddling. Well, what side of town do you live on? Oh, I live on the west side. Okay. Where on the west side? Why not just say, where do you live? But that's what they do, is baiting. See, he probably was doing it then. Watching. He had not built up the strength to execute assaulting someone. Hopefully. Because so far we haven't heard that he's assaulted or unalived anyone else. But there has to be a buildup. And somewhere down the road, he became fascinated with one of these young ladies, and he lost his way. And he started stalking them on social media, and then going to the house and possibly going by jobs to school. Excuse me. And I won't doubt he did those things as well. He found out classes, because you're in an itinerary when you go to college. I'm assuming they still do it the way they did it when I went to school. They put in your classes. Even the campus would put our telephone numbers to our dorm room. All that was connected into like a little leaflet. So people could find out which dorm you were in. They could find out your room number. And then naturally the room number had a phone in there. Things may be a little different now. But There are ways of finding a person. That's the point. So I won't doubt that he followed them to the campus. He followed them in other private places. He followed them to their jobs. So he knew these girls lived with each other. It was a package deal, quite frankly. They always taking pictures together. He saw all of that. He wasn't blind. He saw all of that. So I don't know who the target was as far as the wounds. As the medical examiner has said, or the nurse had said, a person can sustain more wounds because he or she is fighting back. So the more you're fighting, the more wounds you're going to get. Doesn't necessarily mean that was the target because they had more wounds. And we heard Mr. Gonzalez say that about Kaylee. The wounds don't match up. So basically he was saying she had more wounds. But then what didn't make sense about that is the comment before that, oh, he didn't have to go upstairs. Well, then you're alluding to the fact that the target was somebody else. What do you mean? He didn't have to go up there. Okay, but that's where your daughter was found. Or what were you trying to say? This is why sometimes it's best to be quiet. Because if you don't know what you're saying, you can just make it worse. And to some degree, Mr. Gonzalez did that because he would talk in circles and nobody was understanding where he was coming from and what point he was trying to make. And I felt like it's already a dire situation. We don't know anything. We don't know who the target was. We don't know how long this has been going on. They haven't released to us his every movement, everything that's in his devices, computer, drives, hidden files, all that. You know, naturally, all that will come out during trial. So when you say things about wounds and he didn't have to go upstairs, the upstairs comment alludes to that it was meant for somebody else. That's the way he made it sound to me. I don't know. This is why sometimes it's true. You shouldn't say anything. But naturally, he was devastated. He and his wife, family, as with the other family members. And you can't get mad, I guess, because that was his child. So who was the target? Did he care once he got in there? Didn't care. Said, well, they're both here in the bed together. Can't stab one without stabbing the other. But then the weird part is he had to come back down and assumably exit out the way he came, which some would think is the glass door. So what led him around the corner to Xana's room? That's a big mystery. Because if this was, I'm going to get the target, there's still something strange with that as well. Because allegedly she wasn't supposed to be at the house staying. She had moved out. So this is where all that's confusing as well. What's the truth to that? And if he had been watching the house, and let's say Kaylee was the target, she had not been staying there, then what made him pop up November 13th, November 12th? Make it make sense. If she had already moved out, commuted back down there just to visit with the young lady, see, I don't know, because I haven't heard that confirmed. So there's been a lot of chitter chatter. Then he would really have no reason to go to the house. Because he would have realized, well, my target's not here. She hasn't been here. I guess I'll go find out where she is. So if that is true, she had moved out. How long has she moved out? And once again, if all this is true now, this is allegedly, what are the odds he shows up and she is there? If we're to believe she's the target. Many people believe it's this one, that one, because of the Greek restaurant and all that. He's a vegan. That means nothing to me. It just doesn't. He has to eat regardless. And you want me to believe there was nowhere for him to eat in the state of Washington because he's a vegan. Come on now. Vegetables are everywhere. You don't have to drive 15, 20 minutes to one restaurant because they serve vegan dishes. Are you serious? I'm just saying. See, I don't think like that. Because I know a person has to eat. They'll eat wherever. But since that was thrown out so readily, did he ever go to the restaurant? Did he go deliberately looking for one of the young ladies? Who was the target? Why do you have 2 left alive? Because he unalived 4. And we have to understand why he killed 4 people. What were they doing, the ones on the bottom floor, second floor, for them to be in the way? Or he deliberately went in that room to kill Xana and Ethan. Then if we are to believe that, why do you have 2 roommates alive? Make it make sense. And how could you not assume something terrible was happening in this house with 4 individuals if you kept opening and closing doors, Dylan? You're on the floor with 2 who were unalived. 2 are unalived upstairs. No way you couldn't have heard that ruckus above you. The dog was barking for a reason. You heard whimpering coming from Xana's room. There was a thud on audio and whimpering as well, and you heard whimpering. You also say you heard somebody say, "I will help you." No way these events were quiet. So then that means somebody turned a blind eye inside of that house, plural, and did nothing. Allegedly, Dylan says, Kaylee said, "Oh, somebody's here." Now, why would she say that? Just saying. Did she hear somebody come in downstairs, the second floor? So that means if Kaylee heard somebody coming in on the second floor, which is where the kitchen was, then that means, Dylan, you would have heard it too. The same. Make it make sense. Imagine saying those words, "Somebody's here." And then that somebody walks up the stairs, and now you're fighting for your life, you and your friend. And think about this. Each room had 2 people in them. And I understand the theory that Kaylee was trapped in that corner if she's, by the wall. Maddie's on the outside. But you are telling me that there was no way she could have gotten out of that bed. Just asking. Because he can't unalive 2 people at the same time. So then we have to ask, was Maddie awake? You understand? And he just walked in, unalived her first, and then went to Kaylee. Because I understand she was trapped. I'm not trying to make light of that. But let's say if 2 were up, I would assume 2 would be trying to fight to live. and he could not wrestle with one and also be trying to fight off another one. They may not be a match, of course, but you're still talking about two people that you're trying to subdue, and that would be work. So were both of the girls awake when he entered the room? I'm curious. The sheath was found beside Maddie. That's what led them to believe the girls' room was the first room that he entered. Because naturally, you'd have to take the knife out of the sheath. And I do believe after he unalived the two girls, he walked out of there and forgot about the sheath. And then went downstairs to the second floor. And then went around to Xana's room and unalived those two kids. And I'm also asking the same question. Were they up? How is it that Mr. Ethan could not fight this thing off? But we know that your defenses are down if you are sleeping. It's a horrific story. And as I've said many times during my live streams, you have to be aware of your faculties. You have to be aware of your windows, your doors. They need to be sealed. They need to be locked at all times. You cannot have different people running in and out of your house because you don't know who can be in there without your knowledge. Double back. You think everyone's gone from a party? There's somebody still in the house, under a bed, in a closet. You have to be aware. And as I said, this was a recipe for disaster. The numerous of people running in and out of this house, people bringing other people, inviting people, alcohol involved, God forbid any other type of narcotics or drugs used. It was a recipe. Pretty girls, possibly not interested in certain guys. Easy for someone to get an attitude, get disgusted. And what is being said, that's what happened with Mr. Kohberger. He was several years older than these kids, at least 7, 8 years older than them. He had no business being enamored with 20, 21-year-olds in the first place. But that's the thing about social media and scrolling through pictures, endless pictures of people. You can fantasize and build your own existence. Role play. And at some point, he became disgusted with one of the girls, and he sought out revenge. And sadly, she and her friends were murdered. But the messed up part is two are alive. And most of us can't understand how they're alive. Because if this man was going to the house this many times, 10 times at least, he knew who lived there. He knew people stayed there. So if you can go upstairs, you can then go down to the second floor and unalive two. What would keep you from going down to the bottom level? Help me understand. And could it be he went up to that front door, checked it, couldn't get in, went around to the side door, went in, started from the top down. But if I'm to believe that theory, why didn't he touch the door handle to Dylan's room? Because now you have to ask, did the girls have their door open or closed? Was it locked? He broke in the door. Do they normally keep the doors open, closed, locked? See, there are 1,000 questions you can ask. Same thing with Dylan. Normally keep the door open, closed, or locked. But due to the fact that they entertain a lot, I could see the girls closing and locking their doors at night. As not to have the wrong person walk into their room. And if the glass door was unlocked, let's say it was broken, how long And why did these young ladies not get it repaired? Too dangerous. We hear that one of the girls had a messed up lock. Was it just from closing, shutting too much, or someone had been jimmying with it? Don't know. But as I said, this was a recipe for disaster. The endless entertaining and letting people come in the house, men, it's dangerous because you don't know people. And just as easy as this thing infiltrated their lives, someone right there from Moscow, staying there, visiting, could have done the same. Because people watch. And that's exactly what Kohberger did. He watched the girls, he learned their schedules, he pounced. Anyone in that town could have became obsessed with one of the young ladies, and they could have done the same. Readily and easily. Surveillance next door. If there is audio that has relayed information of a whimpering that we believe is Xana, then I would also assume there is CCTV footage alongside that audio, and that should show us a perpetrator. And will we see video of Bryan C. Kohberger entering this house around the side and also exiting back out through that same glass door and going to his car or off the property? And in which direction? And where did he park his car? Edge of the drive, behind the house in the parking lot at the apartment complex, down the street, another street over? Where did he park the car? And of course, he returned. And I think he returned because he realized he forgot the sheath. But he realized it was daytime and it would be foolish to walk in there not knowing who was up, who could see him enter. But then the flip side is you took a chance at 4 a.m. and unalived 4 people. What would be the difference now? You didn't care then. You wouldn't care at 9 o'clock in the morning because you are cocky and arrogant and you have a God complex. But maybe he felt if too many people were coming in the house, he would have to fight 3, 4. I don't know. But something made him not go in that house because he came back for a reason. Either to look to see if the ambulance came, any movement in or out of the house around, but it's still risque because it's broad daylight and you're in the same car that you used to go commit these crimes. Seen around town, the area, the neighborhood 10 times. So he didn't care. But I do believe he went back because he realized he did not have that cover for the knife. Now, where is the knife? Where did he dispose of it? Did he put it somewhere nice and neat where he could go back to retrieve it for round 2? I don't know. Very scary information. He is denied the charge. He is also facing the death penalty, rightfully so. He is also admitted to being in the vicinity of 1122 King Road because he didn't have a choice, because he knows he can't logically explain his car on camera. What the neighbors have as far as CCTV footage, GPS on the car, his phone, those numerous times of going there. How are you going to explain that? How are you going to explain in the past, that morning you went there, returning at 9 a.m.? Because you can't. So I have to say yes. I was just out driving around. Nowhere in particular to go. I do this all the time. But why are you always doing it at 1122 King Road? A place you know no one and you aren't friends with any of the ladies. Make it make sense. Praying for 12 lucid jury members who will dissect the information. Now, naturally, we don't know everything that's going to transpire. Witnesses, eyewitnesses, CCTV footage, data, all that's going to matter. And we have to pray that the people will listen earnestly to the information and follow the jury instructions. Because it will be devastating that all it takes is one to say, this is all circumstantial. He didn't do it. All it takes is one. Will there be somebody that wanted to see the house? Because there's nothing like being able to go into the real thing. And what will be said by the two surviving roommates? Will they tell the truth? And will we get testimony from somebody who says they were up and they heard the commotion going on in that house and they talked about it through text and did nothing to help their friends during the act and thereafter? And how will they be able to explain that if someone brings that testimony into court? They can't. I do believe Dylan hurt a lot because she was up too many times. And to get up 3 times, you 9 times out of 10 heard the bulk of all 4 murders. And you never inquired what's going on. Go up the stairs, look up the stairs, down the stairs, around the corner. And I find that strange. Because there's no way, as I said, he murdered all 4 people quietly. I don't believe that. Hardwood floors, parquet flooring, that's going to make noise. Jumping on beds, bed banging, headboards banging. So you have to think about all of that. Because like I said, you want me to believe that each crime was quiet. You're unaliving 4 people. And you can't hold 2 down at the same time. I don't think it's possible. So make it make sense. Were those 2 roommates up while these children were being unalive and she shut her door and did nothing, and she called Bethany and told her suspicions, and they bunked together? She ran out of her room, went downstairs, slept with her till daylight. Then they got up, walked the house, saw the dead people, or they walked that house after Kohberger left and still stayed in there with those dead kids. Imagine that. Then you are just as sinister as Kohberger. And you will never admit that in open court. But if you did say these things in a group chat, you're still doomed because somebody has kept it. And I pray this is just a rumor. Because the thought of people holding on for dear life, praying that somebody would save them from their injuries, is horrific. And then they're suffering because they are bleeding out, hoping somebody has heard the crime. Now imagine 2 people heard it, 1 heard it, and they did nothing. That's my commentary. Like, share, subscribe, drop your comments below this video. Please take the polls on my community page. My movie suggestions for this week and weekend. Be safe. Happy Super Bowl to everybody. Get a designated driver if you're going to Bryan. Stay warm. Thumbs up on this video. Make it go viral. Give me your thoughts. I will put up a poll pertaining to this content, because I like to go back as time has gone and reassess situation and ask people questions. What do you think now? After what you've seen, what you've heard, what do you think now? Are those young ladies still enrolled in the university via the internet, Or did they leave the school entirely? Do they plan to go to another university, go to a master's program? What are their plans? And how will they be able to testify? Are they looking forward to testifying? Would it shock you if one of them didn't testify? What are their lives like now? And do they have any type of regret pertaining to November 13th? Not doing enough. Because I can't understand staying inside that house, knowing something was going on, and I just stayed in my room. To me, that's scary. Because at some point, you had to tell yourself, I need to get out of here and see what the hell's going on in this house. Because had you gotten up, if I'm to believe that you didn't get up, at some point you should have gotten up. You would have found those kids, and you should have ran out of that damn house and called 911. You and Bethany both. Like, share, subscribe. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Thank you for your time. Praying that this trial goes forward, that there will not be another delay. We will not be looking at this case in 2025. Let's put this this madness to bed, rather. Let's put this to bed. It's time for this case to be put to bed so the parents and family members can move on. What will happen to that plot of land, Memorial Garden? I know. Some of us wanted the house up. They took it down. Thank you for your time. You have been listening to The Vault Excel. Thank you.